On December 27, 1892, Livingstone and Biddle College, now known as Johnson C. Smith University, played in Salisbury, North Carolina, with Biddle winning 5-0. Over time, HBCU football has evolved. HBCU football's popularity continues to rise. Millions attend games each year and millions more watch on television. The HBCU bands provide some of the top entertainment in the country. Over that time, some of the best players to ever play in the National Football League played at HBCUs. Every Monday through Friday on the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, national radio and television host Donal Ware takes a look at what's happening in HBCU football and talks with coaches, players, administrators, and media about the season. Make sure you join the conversation on social media. Now, here's your host, Donal Ware.
You got it locked to the HBCU Football Daily Podcast for today, Monday, September 4th. I'm Donal Ware. It's Labor Day, but we're laboring on this Monday as we've got to recap week one in HBCU football, and it was a pretty exciting week. As a matter of fact, in HBCU football, things kicked off on Thursday. West Virginia State fell to Morehead State 37-35. West Virginia State pulled to within the score of 37-35 with 6:18 remaining, but could not stop Morehead State, who ran out the clock in the last 6 minutes and 18 seconds of that ball game. Boy, things just continue to be bad for Lincoln of Missouri, falling to Emporia State 56-10. And in the MIAA, it's all conference games pretty much for the most part. So Lincoln already 0-1 in the conference. And I don't know. I mean, it's just a program that, for whatever reason, is just not winning football games. I don't think Lincoln of Missouri won a football game last year. I don't have that information right in front of me. And it's just, it's almost like year after year, just losing football games to no end, maybe one win in a season, but mostly no wins. And, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what you do there. It's a competitive conference. You're starting off playing conference games. But I mean, at one time, Lincoln of Missouri was a decent program. I mean, you even have some good players have come through there. A guy like a Lamar Parrish has come through there. I mean, it's got to be something that can happen at Lincoln of Missouri. Continuing on, last Thursday, Arkansas Pine Bluff fell to Tulsa, fell to Tulsa 42-7. North Carolina A&T also stepping up, falling to UAB 35-6. It was Virginia Lynchburg falling to Carson Newman 35-3. Kentucky State getting a win to open the season, defeating Clark Atlanta 34-20 in a non-conference game. Wrapping up the games on Thursday, Lincoln of Pennsylvania falling to Clarion 30-20. But somehow I think this is going to be a bit of a different season for Lincoln of Pennsylvania. I think Lincoln of Pennsylvania is going to be a little bit more competitive this season. It was Fayetteville State on Friday. Fayetteville State fell in a heartbreaker in that great game and those two schools are separated by less than an hour. And Fayetteville State falling to UNC Pembroke 19-17, really in heartbreaking fashion. Albany State falling to Wingate 30-7. So in Wingate's last three games against HBCU opponents, Wingate is 3-0. It was Howard given a valiant effort before falling to Eastern Michigan 33-23. Saturday's games, it was Bowie State I don't even know if I would call this an upset, maybe a mild upset when you look at D2 to FCS, but, Delaware State trying to build a program. And, I'll be honest with you. I was surprised when Delaware State decided to make a coaching change, especially when it decided to make the coaching change. The season had been over since right before Thanksgiving, and Delaware State, Rod Milstead, one of its sons in terms of a great football player of all time. And yeah, Delaware State had a bit of a down season, but I think Rod Milstead had that program on the right track. And that's not to say that Lee Hull can't do some great things there, but that's not a great loss falling to, but it's a good win for Bowie State. Delaware State falling to Bowie State, or Bowie State defeating Delaware State 22-11. Elizabeth City State giving a valiant effort. And there are no such things as moral victories. But if you're Elizabeth City State and you had the season that the Vikings had last year, and you can play a Catawba team to 31-23, as a matter of fact, Elizabeth City State had pulled to within 8 on the next possession for Catawba, forced a turnover, got the football back, but then Elizabeth City State threw it right back. And so may have had an opportunity to tie that game, but falls to Catawba 31-23. It was Johnson C. Smith getting off to the right start to start the season. 48-6 over West Virginia Wesleyan. It was Miles defeating Lane 37-24 in a shocker, but also an interesting football game, especially the way that it ended. It was Virginia State defeating Norfolk State 33-24. You had a situation where Virginia State had an opportunity to run the clock out deep in its own end, did not. Norfolk State got possession back, attempted, and it was down 31, or was down. The score was actually, what was the score? I forget exactly what the score was, but it was 27-24. That's what it was. Virginia State was up 27-24. Norfolk State an opportunity to tie, and the just botched the field goal. Virginia State returns it 77 yards. It ends the game, winning the game over Norfolk State 33-24. They had 21,000 there on the campus of Norfolk State. That stadium seats 33,000. It was Tennessee State, a tough go of it for Tennessee State, losing to Notre Dame 56-3, but $1 million check is what Tennessee State got. I'll take that any day. Central State, you talk about some of these upsets. Well, Central State played up, defeated Mississippi Valley State 24-21 in the Chicago Classic. In another classic, the Brick City Classic in Harrison, New Jersey. It was Hampton over Grambling 35-31. I think the score was a little bit closer than the game really was. The defending HBCU champion, North Carolina Central Eagles, had a chance to be at that game in Durham. All over Winston-Salem State, 47-21. It was 37. It was 37-0 at halftime. Central was up, and Winston didn't play bad in the first half. It's just, North Carolina Central just has a really, really good football team. Davis Richard, the quarterback, really, really good quarterback. In a matchup of top 5 teams, Alabama State defeats Southern 14-10 in the Labor Day Classic in Montgomery. You've got Arkansas Baptist falling to Houston Christian 66-0. Bethune-Cookman lost to Memphis 56-14. Bethune-Cookman managed only 91 yards of total offense in that game. Alcorn State falling to Southern Miss 40-14. Texas College, wow, I don't know. Again, much like Lincoln of Missouri, just a tough go. May win a game every year. A lot of times losing all of its games in a season. Off to the bad start. Texas College falls to UT Permian Basin 96-0. Alabama A&M losing to Vanderbilt 47-13. It was Allen defeating Erskine 24-17. First year in as full members of the SIC are the Yellow Jackets. Erskine, a member of the SAC conference, which is a very tough conference. Benedict making a statement, looking to defend that Division II HBCU national championship all over Shaw, 52-0. A lot of people, I expected that to be a much closer game than it was. and we'll see how things play out for Shaw the rest of the season. But Benedict certainly looked good. South Carolina State falling to Charlotte, stepping up and falling to Charlotte 24-3. It doesn't get any easier. Next week, South Carolina State on the road at Georgia Tech. Florida Memorial defeating Florida Memorial defeating Edward Waters 38-24 in the Big Cat Classic down in Jacksonville. With St. Augustine's falling to Lenore-Rhine 45-7. Bluefield State all over Livingstone 41-7. Welcome to the CIAA. That's not a conference game, but welcome to the CIAA. Welcome to the CIAA Bluefield State. In an upset, Morgan State defeating Richmond 17-10. It's all about the defense. I think we talked about this coming into the season and some of the pre-conversations that we had, that Morgan State's defense was going to be pretty good, and it was. And that's a big win. Richmond out of the CAA. That's a huge win for Morgan State. We'll see if the Bears can keep it up. In the Labor Day Classic in Houston, in a great ball game, Prairie View A&M defeating Texas Southern 37-34. That game went to overtime. Savannah State defeated Southeastern 23-20 in the Orange Blossom Classic in Miami Gardens, Florida. Florida A&M defeating Jackson State 28-10. It was Virginia Union all over Morehouse 45-13 in the Black College Football Hall of Fame Classic in Canton, Ohio. And in an exciting game, Tuskegee held on to defeat Fort Valley State 37-31. Fort Valley State got the ball back, completed a big 76-yard play down the field, had an opportunity on fourth down with about 7 seconds remaining. A face mask was called on Tuskegee, half the distance to the goal line. I think Fort Valley State had it like first and goal from like the 4. A touch pass by the quarterback, Kelvin. It should have been caught by the receiver, couldn't catch it. The Wildcats elect to call a running play. I think it may have been at the 2-yard line. Tuskegee shut it down, and that's how that game ended in Montgomery, Alabama, in the Red Tails Classic. So that's a look at the HBCU scoreboard. If you missed any of those scores, you can log on to our website at boxtorow.com. Tomorrow is Takeaway Tuesday. I've got some thoughts on some of what we saw on Monday, or really in week 1 of HBCU football. And depending upon when you're watching this, the HBCU National Players of the Week going to be named today. Also, the coaches and media polls, the HBCU coaches and media polls will be released today as well. Don't forget to tell a couple of friends about the HBCU Football Daily Podcast, where you can watch on the Box to Row YouTube channel, and you can download or listen at boxtorow.com as well as iHeartMedia.com. Talk with you tomorrow.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the HBCU Football Daily Podcast. You can also listen to the podcast at boxtorow.com, iHeartMedia, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to get your HBCU football fix on Box to Row with Donal Ware each weekend on the radio station near you, and on SiriusXM on HBCU, Channel 142, and on ESPNU Radio on SiriusXM, Channel 84. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Box to Row for the latest in HBCU football, and don't forget to tell a friend.